Welcome back. We created a few REST services using Spring Boot in the last few steps, and when I run this URL hello world bean, I get this message back. Now the interesting part is how do you call these services from your front end, from our Angular application. What we'll start with is we will take this welcome screen and we will add a button in here. So let's add a button in here, and our eventual aim is to be able to call this service and see the message which is coming back in here. The next few steps would help you understand the complexities associated with invoking RESTful API from Angular applications. We will use something called HTTP client module. You'd see that Angular provides us with an awesome framework based on something called observable. Let's get started now. Let's start with enhancing our welcome screen to have a button and something which we can click. Before we get started, make sure that you are able to run the REST service as well as you have your Angular thing up and running. I'll go over to our favorite IDE, Visual Studio Code, and let's go move on to welcome.component.html. That's where we would want to add a new div. So let's copy this out. I'll paste this in and create a new div. What I'll do is I'll have a simple message in here. Click here to get a customized welcome message, and let's have a simple button in here, right? So button, and what we want to do is we would want to enable the click event. So click, so we are doing an event binding, so we would want to bind to a specific method. I'll just call this get welcome message. We'll create this method. Let's create this button. I'll call this get welcome message. Cool. Now if you'd go to the screen, you'd see that it would refresh and you have the get welcome message. Let's add a simple class dot button. This is bootstrap, and we would want to say this is button success. The change doesn't reflect. It's time for me to relearn my CSS things. I should not really have a dot in here. So now the welcome message appears in here. Now the get welcome message button appears in the font we would want. Now what we want to do is enable click of this method, right? If I click this method right now, what would happen? You know what would happen. It would give us an error, obviously, right? Let's go to the console. You'd see that there's an error. It says there is no method of that kind present. So get welcome message is not a function. So where should we create this function? Think about it. Where should I create the get welcome message function? In the component ts. Welcome.component.ts is where we would go, and let's quickly create that function in. So now get welcome message is the method that would be invoked when, so I'll just say console.log get welcome message. Cool. When I say get welcome message is printed out to the console. Let's comment out the other message which is coming in here, the console.log, which we wrote in another earlier step. So the only thing which we see right now is whatever we get from here. That's cool. Now we have a button, we have tied it to a method inside the welcome.component. But what we really want to do is we would want to invoke this hello world bean. That's the thing that we would want to do. Now how do we invoke the service? The thing is, as usual, we'll create a new service. This service would call a backend service, a backend API. That's the reason why we will call it data service. And the thing which it would get is the welcome message. Let's go back to our favorite Angular CLI. Make sure that you are inside the to-do folder. You can see if I put in the present working directory, I'm in the root folder of the Angular application. That's cool. I want to generate a service. So ng generate service, and I would want to have a data service. So what I'll do is I'll create it in folder structures service / data. So service is the folder where we have all the services. Let's group all the data services in the data folder. And what data does it get? The data it would get is welcome data. So I'm saying service data welcome data. So we are going to create a welcome data service in the folder service/data. Let's see what would happen. Press enter. It would create a couple of files as usual, and it's welcome data service. Let's take the welcome data service. Let's pick up the welcome data service file, and over here you can see that it's typical thing which is ready for dependency injection because it at injectable within the root scope. So that's cool. We'll go ahead and create a simple method in here which would help us in retrieving the data from the backend service. Let's create a method down here that we can use to invoke the hello world service. I'll call this execute hello world bean service. For now, let's not really do anything. Let's just log execute hello world bean service. Cool. Now what we want to do is we would want to make use of this service in the welcome component. So let's go ahead to the welcome component, and we would want to use the welcome data service in here. How can we do that? You need to use dependency injection. So as usual, let's reformat this so that we can have multiple things clearly listed. So private, we'll say service. What service? We would want to use welcome data service. So let's go ahead and import it in. You'd see that there is a welcome data service which would be imported at the top. Service data welcome data dot service. That's cool. What we want to do here is we would want to call in the get welcome message this dot service dot execute hello world bean service. That's what we would want to do. I'll comment this one because we don't really need it anymore. Let's see what would happen now. Let's go to today's application, click. Let's wait for it to relaunch. So it's executing the hello world bean service. The thing is, we have not really written the logic for it yet. What we'll do in the next step is focus on the logic for the hello world bean service. Let's see how to call the HTTP service in the next step. Until then, bye bye.